Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Has Kailash Satyarthi's Nobel Peace Prize only received a muted response? And is this because child labour is a subject that doesn't receive the attention it deserves, or even one that often embarrasses India? That's the debate in part 2. But first, campaigning in Maharashtra has ended and there are just 36 hours to go for the voting. So tonight we ask, what sort of campaign has it been? Can Mr. Modi single-handedly sweep the BJP to power? Are we looking at the beginning of the end of the Shiv Sena? And are Congress and NCP banished to the sidelines? Those are the questions we will answer in part 1, when we will also focus on the latest controversy provoked by using the Prime Minister's Madison Square Garden speech as an election advertisement. And now joining me to talk about the Maharashtra campaign is the former editor of the Times of India, Dilip Vadgaonkar, the associate editor of The Hindu, Smita Gupta, and joining us shortly, the well-known senior journalist, Smriti Kopikar. Smita Gupta, let's start with the latest controversy before we widen our discussion and talk about the overall campaign. Was the BJP right to use Mr. Modi's Madison Square Garden speech as a campaign advertisement?
I don't think so, because in fact I think a lot of people who began to see it first thought that it was, got confused, and it appeared to be an election rally till you suddenly saw that it said advertisement, and then you realized that the crowds, were not at any rally in Maharashtra, but at Madison Square Garden. But, well, it's a moot point whether, you can use an ad like that or not. But I personally think that it did confuse a lot of people, and especially the kind of response that he got at the Madison Square Garden. To use that in Maharashtra would also suggest that he may not have been getting as much of a response as he had hoped to get.
But you're talking, in fact, about whether this would have confused the audience, whether they would have mistaken Madison Square Garden for somewhere in Maharashtra. That apart, is there a moral or ethical issue here of using a speech made by Mr. Modi as Prime Minister to boost a campaign where Mr. Modi is actually just the BJP leader and not really Prime Minister in the sense of the campaign? Is there an ethical issue involved?
Well, one might question even the Madison Square Garden rally, speech. What was that? Was he addressing them as Prime Minister? Was he making a political speech there? So, I mean, Mr. Modi is making his own rules, as we can see, and doing, going where no politician has tread in the past.
Okay. Dilip Vadgaonkar, the BJP claims that Madison, we don't have Dilip there, and nor do we have Smriti Kopikar, so I'll go back to Smita Gupta. The BJP claims, Smita Gupta, that Madison Square Garden was a private and not an official event, and therefore there's nothing wrong in using the speech for election purposes. Do you buy that argument?
No, I don't buy that, because, I mean, if he was a private individual, I doubt whether he would have got that kind of billing, whether, so many people in the US, NRIs, would have put together the money to, host such a, public meeting. So I think that, to call it a private, what is private once you're Prime Minister?
Smriti Kopikar, welcome to the program. We're talking about the controversy that's hit the news late last night when that speech of Mr. Modi's delivered at Madison Square Garden was used as a campaign advertisement by the BJP. Now, the BJP claims that their justification comes from the fact that this Madison Square Garden event was a private, not an official engagement. But would you agree with the argument that regardless of whether it was a private or an official event, Mr. Modi was speaking as Prime Minister of India, not as a BJP leader? And the audience too came to hear the Prime Minister of India, not a BJP leader. Therefore, should a speech made in his capacity as Prime Minister be used for a campaign where he's really playing the role of a party leader?
Well, Karan, I think what happened is there's some very clever by half use of the existing laws by the BJP. He went to America as the Prime Minister of India, and though the Madison Square Garden event may have been a private event organized by XYZ organization that's stationed there, The point is, when he addressed the gathering there, it was very clear that he was addressing them as the Prime Minister of India. He asked them to participate in the remaking of India, the making of a new India and all of that. So I don't think there was any doubt in anybody's mind that he was speaking there as the Prime Minister of India and not as a prime ministerial candidate of the BJP, which is what he has been for the better part of last year.
Okay.
And somewhere he appeared to be in that mode. And the additional point that I want to make here is that he was talking to 19,000 NRIs who had paid to listen to him at the Madison Square Garden. But that speech was basically an election speech meant for Maharashtra and Haryana. And those of us who said it so back then were told by the BJP that it's a figment of our imagination. All we had to do was to wait for this week for the BJP to use that very speech as an election campaign
And prove
speech.
your point. Absolutely. Dilip Padankar, welcome to the program. And my apologies, we seem to be having trouble with the OB from Pune. We're talking at the moment about the controversy that hit the news late last night when Mr. Modi's Madison Square Garden speech was used as a campaign advertisement by the BJP. Was the BJP right in doing so? Or in your eyes, has it crossed a moral or ethical or a red line of propriety in some sense?
Karan, Mr. Modi has been campaigning in Maharashtra, relentlessly campaigning not only as a BJP leader, but as the Prime Minister of India. And therefore, as far as the average opinion here is concerned, they don't seem to believe that there was any kind of contravention of any kind of moral limits to this whole business. My personal view, of course, is quite different, which is that in Madison Square, he spoke as the Prime Minister, and he should certainly have tried to avoid using that speech. I mean, he could very well have used his speech at the United Nations General Assembly too, but he didn't do that. So as far as opinion is concerned, I mean, I don't think it's going to make any difference to the outcome of the forthcoming assembly elections.
Okay, but the point you're making is that in your personal opinion, there was a propriety issue and he was on the wrong side of it by using the Madison Square Garden speech for election purposes. Have I summed you up correctly?
Absolutely.
Let me put one other question to you. Mr. Modi, as you know, has been, in fact, addressing some total of 24, 25 rallies in Maharashtra, often 3 or 4 in a single day. Is it right for the Prime Minister to invest so much time and effort in one single state? Or is there really nothing wrong in doing so? There seems to be split opinions on this. Where do you come in?
The BJP wants to make it big in Maharashtra, partly because Mumbai happens to be the financial capital of the country, and it is therefore imperative for the BJP to have a huge stake in Maharashtra. Secondly, Maharashtra is important for the BJP in view of the Rajya Sabha elections in 2016 and later on in 2018, because if Mr. Modi wants to push through his legislation in all matters, his party needs a majority in the Rajya Sabha, which it does not command at the present moment. So I'm not the least bit surprised that he has invested so much of his time and energy in campaigning in Maharashtra.
Smita Gupta, the problem is that as far as the BJP is concerned, all they've got is Mr. Modi and his popularity. Beyond that, in Maharashtra, they lack strong political local leaders. They lack a strong local organization. They even seem to lack candidates. They've had to import 50, by some count 60 from other parties. So how much can one man on his own do?
Well, on paper, it really looks difficult because in the past, the BJP has only been able to poll between 10.71% and 14.54% in the last 4 or 5 elections ever since they had a tie-up with the Shiv Sena. And you're absolutely right, after the death of Gopinath Munde, they don't even have a strong Maharashtrian leader. Which is precisely why, as Dilip pointed out, Mr. Modi has gone all out and the election is being played, the Maharashtra election is being played as though Mr. Modi is the face of the BJP over there, and somebody who is his nominee will become chief minister. I mean, even his speeches seem to convey that, come on board and, I will take care of you.
Dilip Prabhakar, to
So
what
we
extent...
have to see whether Mr.
Sorry, finish your sentence. Go ahead. Finish your sentence, Smita.
No, I'm saying we have to see to what extent Mr. Modi is actually able to fill that breach, which is definitely there.
Absolutely, and we'll know within just 6 days' time. But let me put something to you, Dilip Prabhakar. To what extent does the BJP have not one, but two potential Achilles heels in this Maharashtra campaign? First, its stand on Vidarbha, where it claims to remain committed to creating a separate Vidarbha state, but at the same time it's now insisting that commitment won't be fulfilled till after 2019. And the second one is the fact that perhaps it's had to import from other parties 50, by some counts 60 candidates. To what extent are these two Achilles heels a problem for the BJP?
On the first count, let me say that they couldn't possibly take a chance on Vidarbha because the BJP wants to spread its tentacles in absolutely every nook and corner of the state. And that is why it is in the Vidarbha area where it has a strong presence. It is a strong presence in Marathwada, but it also wants to make major intrusions in the Konkan, in the Bombay, Greater Bombay area, and of course in Western Maharashtra, which remains a bastion of the NCP and the Congress. Now, given this, I'm not at all surprised about the ambivalent stand on Vidarbha. As far as people that they brought in from the outside, that again, it's no surprise. In election after election, there has been the Ayaram Gayaram phenomenon at all times. So overnight, you've got a staunch secularist turned quote-unquote communal, though vice versa has not always been true.
Okay.
I think politicians want to go along with the winning streak, and many now sense that the winning streak in Maharashtra is going to be the BJP.
Let's broaden briefly, Smriti, beyond the BJP. First of all, what sort of campaign in your eyes has Uddhav Thackeray fought? Remember, this is not just the first time the Shiv Sena, after 25 years, is fighting without the BJP. It's also the first time it's fighting an election without Bal Thackeray.
That's right. What was your question?
What sort of campaign has Uddhav Thackeray fought?
I think I'll go back slightly in half a minute. I think in May it was pretty clear to the BJP and the Shiv Sena that this state was theirs to take. They were ahead in about 225 constituencies. So from there, it seemed like the Sena didn't really have a plan to go out there and win this election. They thought and they behaved as if they had already won it or nearly won it. And the same goes for the BJP. But the difference is that when the two parties split or decided that they would split, the BJP appeared to be in a far better organized state than the Shiv Sena because of its machinery, its organizational powers and resources perhaps. The Shiv Sena was caught a little on the back foot on that.
Okay.
And since then, Uddhav's campaign has focused largely on drawing upon this Afzal Khan parallel of the BJP / Modi being the Afzal Khan and the Shiv Sena trying to, down them and all of that. And it's been a bitter war of words. For everything that Uddhav has said, Modi has responded by invoking Shivaji and by trying to speak in Marathi at all his rallies. I don't know if Uddhav has been impressed by all of that. He certainly doesn't seem impressed.
Okay.
The Shiv Sena released a vision document or a blueprint a month before, even when the alliance was on, and they released a manifesto in a very low-key manner the other day. But this election is not at all about ideas or agendas or visions or plans or anything like that. It's really a very, very naked run for power and trying to outdo each other. So the campaign has been really devoid of issues.
Dilip Patankar, let's come very quickly to Congress first before we move to the NCP. After 15 years, no doubt there is enormous anti-incumbency that they have to handle. In your eyes, has the Congress campaign been uphill all the way? And was Sonia and Rahul Gandhi well advised to play a minimal role?
Yeah, it's been uphill all the way, and it's not just a question of 15 years. Ever since the state was formed in 1960, the Congress has been out of power just twice. Once in 95 when the BJP Sena came, and once, I can't recall exactly, when Sharad Pawar headed the PDP government. So this election is really going to be a kind of watershed election for the... And somehow Prithviraj Chavan, the Chief Minister, face also of the Congress party.
We seem to be losing the audio to Smita Gupta. My apologies, we've lost it completely. Dilip Patankar, let me bring you in at that point. The question I was putting to Smita was Sonia and Rahul well advised to play a minimal role, given that this is an uphill campaign all the way for Congress?
I think they did well not to campaign extensively in Maharashtra. They've also done it well to allow Prithviraj Chavan to be projected as the face of the Congress in Maharashtra. In fact, I've seen huge amount of hoardings across the state, which has only one photograph, and that is that of Prithviraj Chavan. So I think they've done well. Prithviraj Chavan, of course, faces anti-incumbency, but he is also perhaps the one leader about whose personal integrity no one ever has raised a finger. So I think to that extent, the Congress strategy has been a good strategy, but whether that strategy is going to pay dividends is far, far from clear. I think the Congress, together with the NCP, is presently showing all its warts, and that, I think, is going to be detrimental to the electoral fortunes of both these parties.
Smriti Kopikar, what about the NCP? How damaged is the party by the image of corruption that surrounds it?
Pretty badly, Karan. They've taken a huge knock. Nothing has been proved, but in these kinds of cases, it's very difficult for cases to go right up there and get proven in a court of law. But what is surrounding them is this odor of corruption and wrongdoing right from the top, the very top of the party. And also this arrogance and brashness that Ajit Pawar somehow seems to display at every given opportunity, and that's not standing them in good stead at all.
Very quickly, Smita Gupta, if the BJP, as the polls suggest and as most analysts are also now concurring, becomes the single largest but is short of a majority on its own, do you see the Shiv Sena extending support? Or after calling Modi Afzal Khan, after accusing the BJP of trying to split Maharashtra, and after the ambivalence the BJP has shown over Vidarbha, do you think it will be very difficult for Uddhav Thackeray to swallow his pride and support the BJP?
Well, the BJP may have another option. There may be 30, 40 independents also, Maharashtra has, so they might not have to look at that. But for Uddhav Thackeray to swallow his pride and come back, I don't know. Maybe the BJP will approach even the NCP, though I don't know how many seats the NCP will win.
Very quickly, on that possibility, Dilip Patankar, you're in Pune. Pune is part of what the NCP considers its stronghold. Last time round, of the 21 assembly seats, they won 8, which gave them 13% of their overall tally. Do you see the NCP this time round coming in at 4th position, as some of the polls suggest? Or do you think the polls are underestimating NCP?
I think the polls may be slightly underestimating the NCP because the NCP continues in Western Maharashtra to dominate the cooperative banks, the sugar cooperatives, the educational empires. All of that is with the NCP. And I wouldn't minimize, therefore, the impact of all this on the elections. But this much said, I believe that this is going to be the worst ever record of the NCP since the party was formed. And it's not just because of the odor of corruption. or the arrogance of people like Ajit Pawar. It's also because NCP leaders have been putting their foot in the mouth time and again. The latest case being R.R. Patil, the former Home Minister. You know, these things don't go down well at all, even among those who generally are now, really indifferent to this kind of abuse of language.
Okay.
So, if there is one party which really faces a very, very tough time, it is the NCP.
All right, we're going to leave it there. My thanks to all three of you for joining me. Voting starts in 36 hours and we will by Sunday evening, in fact, know what the outcome is. Time for a break. But then, rather than applaud, are many in India silent and possibly even embarrassed by Kailash Satyarthi's Nobel Peace Prize? And are there some who are suspecting that there are political motives behind it? Join me in a moment to find out.